Hi everyone, I think we better make a start now. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today and welcome to the webinar. My name is David Hitchings and I'm the support manager here at AB Dynamics. Today we're really excited to be able to share some real technical details with you about the new GST120. Hopefully you've been aware of this new product for at least a couple of weeks now, and today you'll find out exactly why it is the most capable ADAS platform on the market. And as we'll find out, it's not just about the top speed. So to tell us more, let me introduce you to some of my colleagues. Firstly, Dr. Andrew Pick. Andy is the director of our Track Test Systems business unit. He's been at ABD since 2005, which was about actually 10 years before we first shipped our first GST. So Andy has been involved in the GST product family right from the word go. And of course, he has a huge amount of experience in the ADAS platform market. Andy is going to be giving us a technical overview of the new GST120. Let's say a quick hello now. Hi, Andy.
Hi there, David. Thanks very much for the introduction.
Thanks, Andy. And as part of Andy's presentation, he'll be discussing some of the GST120's new braking features with Alan Johnston. Alan is our principal applications engineer and joined us in 2019 from Honda, where he was a senior research and development engineer working on foundation braking, modulation and stability. Before that, he worked at Dennis Specialist Vehicles, again as a development engineer, focusing on brake system development for Dennis fire engines and for buses and coaches. And before that, he worked at Terex, developing power hydraulic brakes. So Alan, you like making things slow down then?
It's a lot bit, David.
Jolly good. We look forward to hearing more from you shortly. And the final person I want to introduce is Eduardo de Arujo, one of our senior product engineers. Ed has been with us since 2018, and he's focused exclusively on the GST since he arrived, becoming the GST product manager within the last few months. And Ed's on hand to help us answer technical questions at the end. So any particularly obscure questions, I'm sure he'll be delighted to answer, and I'll be sure to throw his way. Hi, Ed, are you there?
Hi, David. Hi, everyone. Yeah, no, I'm here. Excited to be here today.
Great. And on the subject of questions, please do ask us any questions you want as we go through the presentations. You should see a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. So ask away, and we will cover questions at the end of Andy and Alan's presentations. So let me hand over to Andy.
Well, thanks very much, David. So we're really excited to join you this afternoon, and we'd like to really just welcome you today. It's great that so many of you have taken the time to join us for the launch of our new product, the GST120. And the GST120 is notable not only because it is the fastest soft vehicle target we've ever made, but it also features the largest battery and improved braking. So through this presentation, I'd like to introduce you to the features and benefits of this new product. And I think probably most of you will already be familiar with the concept behind the GST. And that's because since its adoption by Euro NCAP for testing back in 2016, it's really become an essential test tool used widely across the industry to prove the safety of driver assistance systems and safety systems. And the concept's quite simple. The soft vehicle target is designed to look exactly like a real car. It's got the same radar signature as a real car. But if you collide with this platform, it can break apart into its component parts, which are made of foam. So there's really minimal risk of damage to your test vehicle. So because of these kind of features, the soft vehicle target that sits on top has been used by Euro NCAP. And it also sets a standard now for the GVT and most recently the ISO 19206-3 standard. And some of the features of the product mean that you can quickly build it and rebuild it if you do collide with it in just 8 minutes. It's serviceable. When the parts wear out, the individual components can be easily replaced. And really, this concept lends itself to these high-speed collisions by breaking apart into these component pieces. Really minimizes the risk of damage to your test vehicle like no other solution. So underneath the soft car body is an electric propulsion system. And that propulsion system is a low profile platform that sits just 100 mil from the road surface. And the platform can be overdriven not just by cars, but even by heavy trucks. But up until now, the platform has been limited to just 100 kilometers per hour. And what we're seeing really is a trend from industry where autonomy is being introduced. But the testing requirements for autonomy and autonomous vehicles are much more challenging. So rather than simply being single vehicle hazards and single vehicle test cases, we're seeing that in the case of autonomous vehicles, there's a requirement for vehicles to be able to perform safely amongst traffic. And what we're seeing is that in the first instances, we'll see autonomous vehicles introduced on our motorways, highways, and autobahns. And if we want to test those systems safely, we need test targets that can operate at highway speeds. So for the first time, GST120 makes testing at highway speeds reality. So let's talk about what's actually underneath the soft car and built into this platform. And essentially the technology that makes up the GST120 is based on the industry-leading technology that we've already deployed in our existing product. But we've really taken the time to engage with our customers here and get feedback on how we can improve the platform and add new features which are needed for these new test requirements. So just as some examples, we've increased the battery capacity to 4.8 kilowatt hours. So this is the largest battery of any of these platforms on the market. And what it means is you can have extended uninterrupted testing for the longest periods. We've also worked really hard on the stability of this platform. And that's really necessary because we're traveling at higher speeds where the kind of wind disturbances and things become more critical. And we've been able to increase the wheelbase and also add additional dynamic controls into the control system to get good path following control. The brakes are improved. So now GST120 is fitted with ABS brakes, and that allows us to brake not only at higher rates, but it also gives the added benefit of extended tyre life. And GST120, hence the name, is capable of travelling at test speeds of up to 120 kilometers per hour. And that means that this GST is the fastest platform ever of its type. So one of the key things that's allowed us to go at these high speeds is the new battery technology. And what we've been able to do is actually incorporate more batteries into our platform. So we're still relying on lithium-ion battery technology, but some of the features of our batteries are really based around the automotive industry standards for electric vehicles. So we've added new connector types and things that all come from the automotive industry. And our concept involves building in the charging circuitry into the platform. What this means is that you can charge the platform up whenever you want. You can top it up, but also encompassed with this high capacity battery, it means we have the possibility of extended running. And this platform is actually capable of ranges of in excess of 40 kilometers. And that's really because of this large high capacity battery. So with lithium batteries come safety concerns, and we've tested this battery to the highest standards. So we've been using the UN 38.3 testing approval process. And that means that this battery is tested and approved as safe for air freight. And part of the testing involves some really extreme, arduous conditions. So for example, these batteries have experienced really extreme temperatures, both high and low temperatures, as well as shock loading and vibration loading to prove that they will remain operational and safe. So when you put all these sort of incremental improvements together, you get a big step change in performance. And the GST120 is in fact capable of its speeds in excess of 120 kilometers per hour. And what that means is you can reliably test at test speeds of 120. And that's really illustrated nicely. If you look at the data, this platform is able to achieve and maintain these limiting speeds of 120 kilometers per hour. So it's not just the batteries that allow for high-speed operation. We've also done a lot of work on the powertrain and the drivetrain in this system. So I want to welcome you to our dyno lab, and each and every GST platform that we build gets tested in this dyno lab. And the dyno allows us to represent the real-life road loads highly repeatably and accurately, and not just the inertial loads based on the mass of the platform, but also the aerodynamic drag that the platform sees when it's traveling at 120 kilometers per hour. So I'm just going to give you a quick example. So I hope you can hear the dyno in operation there, and it is noisy, and that's because the battery is actually drawing 40 kilowatts of power, and that all gets translated through to the rear wheel to propel this platform at 120 kilometers per hour. So having this extra capacity for high speed and bigger battery brings some additional benefits. And we've also been able to increase the acceleration capability of our platform. So not only can it travel faster, but with this higher rate of acceleration, we can actually carry out our tests in less space. And that's really helpful and important, especially for customers where proving ground space is at a premium. So taking as an example, our existing GST product was capable of achieving around 70 kilometers per hour in 110 meters. But it took 150 meters to achieve 80 kilometers per hour. On the other hand, GST120 is capable of reaching that 80 kilometer per hour test speed in just 110 meters. And I think nothing really illustrates this better than this, this example. So this is a drag race, GST100 versus GST120. And what you'll see is that each and every time the GST120 wins and is ahead. So one of the other considerations that we wanted to make sure we addressed was the stability of the platform at high speed. And the GST120 has additional wheelbase, which means that we get inherently a more stable action at high speed. But we've also been able to improve the control algorithm. And not only do we feed back position and heading angle, but by also feeding back the vehicle states, we can accurately control the platform and ensure that the platform maintains its path following precision to within 10 centimeters. So in this video, I hope you can just see that in action. So here's GST120 traveling at 120 kilometers per hour. And you can see the white line on the track and how the vehicle is able to follow and maintain that straight line path. So, of course, with all this extra speed capability, it's also really important that you can stop the platform safely. And I'd like to introduce you back to Alan again. So Alan Johnston's joined us. Alan, are you there?
Yes, Andrew.
So Alan's actually been working and known with ABD for the last 15 years. And that's because prior to joining ABD, Alan was one of our customers. And as David explained, Alan was working on the development of braking systems, which means he's ideally placed to help design and develop the braking system for our newest product, GST120. So Alan, please go ahead and share us the details about this new system.
Thank you, Andrew. Can I have the next page, please? So, hi, as David and Andrew have said, I have a long history of braking systems, and as any brake engineer will tell you, safety is number one. That is why the GST120 is fitted with a dual redundancy brake system, which can provide 6 meters per second worth of braking, whilst maintaining its directional stability. We have also utilised the regenerative capacity of rear motor to extend the battery life and assisting braking. And to minimise the tyre wear, we have added anti-lock brakes. All of this is designed to keep you testing safely and for longer. Next slide, please. So to provide ABS functionality in the GST120, we added wheel speed sensors and some additional hardware. The control strategy of the ABS system is designed to hold the tyre slip around 20%. If the tyre slip goes above this level, the braking pressure is reduced until the tyre regains its grip. Technically, the system is a 2-channel 3-sensor ABS system. Next slide, please. So here are 2 examples. The one on the left without ABS, which shows the wheel lock for most of the stop, and this will, in general cases, flat spot the tyre. And on the right with ABS. In this case, you can clearly see the ABS system working hard to hold the tyre slip at 20%. The addition of the ABS to the GST120 has significantly improved the tyre life, and higher levels of braking can be achieved, in fact, to a class-leading 8 meters per second squared. Next slide, please. So to see the improvements, here are the first 10 of 20 high deceleration stops from 120 kph, recorded when we were conducting cooling tests. As part of these tests, we review the durability of the key components, including brakes and tyres. So here is the first 10. Next slide, please. And here are the next 10 stops. As you can see, we repeatedly achieved the target of 120 kph, and all the stops were conducted above 6 meters per second squared, with the ABS working to minimize the tyre damage. After these tests, the tyres were removed and inspected. Next slide, please. So you can see from the inspection, the tyre on the right looks perfectly round with no flat spots. In fact, even after the 20 high-speed stops, this tyre is still perfectly usable. Next slide, please. So let's see the anti-lock braking system in action. So in this video, keep an eye on the yellow section in the tyre. This gives you an indication of the tyre rotation. The video shows the GST accelerating to 100 kph, holding its speed for 2.5 seconds, then performing a high G ABS controlled stop. You can see the GST speed top left, the ABS activation flag in the middle, and the line pressure at the bottom. So now that I've explained what to look for, let's play it again, but this time with some sound. Next slide, please. And that concludes my overview of the GST120. Now back to Andrew for the rest of the presentation.
Well, thanks very much, Alan. That was really helpful. Really great to see the braking system working so well on GST120. And what I'd like to do then is just take a look at some of the other typical scenarios that GST120 is really well suited to. And I'm sure you're all probably aware, but there are some new regulations and requirements around UNECE ALKS, or automated lane keeping systems, as well as the Euro NCAP 2020 grading for assisted driving activity. And both of these test regulations have a requirement on looking at performance in cut-in scenarios where the vehicle under test needs to slow down in the event that another vehicle cuts in front of it. So to help set up these types of scenarios, we have introduced a wizard into the software which allows you to quickly define a multitude of different types of scenarios using this graphical interface. And you can just see an example of one of these scenarios here. And in this case, not just a 2-vehicle scenario, but with some additional traffic as well. And you can see that we can really closely and accurately control the GST to cut in front of the vehicle under test, in this case to within just 1 meter. And of course, when you review this video, you can see that the vehicle under test safely slows down to maintain that safe headway between the vehicle ahead and itself. Now, if we take the UNECE regulation It's really interesting actually, because it defines around 4 different variables that all need to be considered when looking at the cutting scenario. And of course, automated vehicles need to be able to perform safely in every single circumstance. So what that means is really every single combination and permutation of test scenario needs to be proven to end in a safe result. And with these 4 variables, headway, speed of the vehicles, closing speed, and lateral velocity of the lane change, with these 4 variables, you very quickly end up with over 1,000 different test scenarios. And that's illustrated really well with this, this matrix here. And you can see that on the 2 axes, you've got speed and closing speed. And then each box there represents a combination of those speeds. And actually, every pixel inside those boxes is one unique test case. So it becomes quite challenging to run all of these tests on the test track. And this is where simulation comes in. And we've developed a virtual GST in collaboration with our sister company, RF Pro. And RF Pro are capable of simulating real-world test tracks in a really high fidelity digital twin virtual environment. And by using these virtual environments, we can run the many thousands of iterations of tests, and then we can pick out those key edge cases to run for real on the proving ground. And we can also run the same tests on the proving ground to validate the simulations that we might run in the virtual world. So in this way, we can really take the virtual simulations and transform them into real world testing scenarios. And I want to leave you with just one further scenario. If you can picture yourself traveling on a highway or a motorway, but the lane ahead of you is closed. So as a driver, you'd naturally merge and turn in cooperation with the other vehicles in the adjacent lanes. And autonomous vehicles will need to do the same thing, even when the lane is blocked by another vehicle. In this case, that other vehicle is the GST. So we can actually program the GST to be intelligent and to react and respond to the traffic around it. And we can do that because we can incorporate Python scripting via an optional module into the control system on the GST. And what this means is that the GST can react, slow down to block the vehicle in the adjacent lane, or even allow the vehicle in the adjacent lane to enter, but only after a set delay. But it means that we can completely control the test scenario and really challenge the autonomous vehicle and check the safety of that vehicle. And what's more, we can take these same scenarios and we can run exactly the same thing in the virtual environment. And here you can see the same thing running in the RF Pro digital twin environment. So really that concludes the presentation on the GST120. I hope you can see how the GST120 brings new possibilities for testing of not only driver assistance systems, but also autonomy, and especially for these highway scenarios that need to be conducted at high speeds. We'd just like now to invite the rest of the panel back again, because we'd be really pleased to answer any questions that you've had through the presentation.
Right, well, thank you very much indeed, Andy, and before that, Alan. And also thank you to everyone for listening and of course for all your questions. We've got a few minutes left now, so we will get through as many of those as we can. And just as a reminder, as well as Andy and Alan, who we've just heard from, we also have Ed to help. The first question I can probably handle myself. It's, is it possible to receive a link to download the video of this webinar at the end? And the answer is yes, you can and you will. 24 hours after the webinar ends, you should receive an email. And I'll say a bit more in the closing words about how you, if you have any colleagues who also want to view that. Let's start with a few questions around batteries then. This is probably one for either you, Andy, or you, Ed. What are the voltage of the batteries? And the reasoning behind that question is, are they still subject to ADR or Class 9 legislation?
So yeah, I can probably answer that straight away. So each battery pack has a voltage of 50 volts, and together they combine in the GST platform to give over to around about 300 volts. And yes, you do need to take consideration of the ADR Class 9 legislation when you ship these batteries. But we have tested the batteries against the UN 38.3 regulations, which means you can ship these batteries safely.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Staying with batteries, we've had a question about charging. How long does it take to charge?
I can take that one, David. So in terms of charging, it really depends on each customer and their use of the platform. But the charging times are very similar to those of the Mark II GST. Basically, a fast charge can be completed in 1 hour, but periodically there is a benefit in extended charging, which can take between 2 to 3 hours, and it helps balance the cells so that you're always at the best performance that you can take them from the platform.
Okay, thanks, Ed. And do we have any information about how long the batteries last in terms of when would they need to be replaced within the product's life cycle?
I mean, there are GSTs out there from day one that are still running their original battery packs, and we're talking over 5 years. So once again, it really does depend on individual customer use, but it's very rare that we have to replace the full battery system of a GST.
Okay, thank you very much, Ed. Moving on now to the soft car. Is there an updated version that's needed for the GST120, which is different from the GST100?
Okay, so yeah, perhaps I can pick that one up as well. And fundamentally, the soft car that goes on top of the GST120 is identical, and it's based on the Revision G soft car, which forms the basis of the global vehicle target and the ISO specification. But because the platform has a slightly longer length, there is an adaptation to the shape of the longitudinal pieces that hold up that car. So there are a few internal pieces which are bespoke for this particular platform.
Great, thank you, Andy. We've had several questions about upgrading and can various bits of kit be used with the new GST120. Let's start with the platform itself, and I guess this is one for either Andy or Ed. Can an existing GST 100 or GST Mark II, as we call them, be upgraded to a GST 120?
So yeah, so perhaps I should pick that one up then. Fundamentally, the platform is slightly longer, so it's 270 mil longer, and that gives this nice benefit for improved stability at high speed, and also allows us to accommodate those extra batteries. But there are many components inside that are the same. For example, the base station and pieces are all common. So if you do want to upgrade your existing platform, then I'd really encourage you to get in touch, because we could look at a special way and an arrangement to make that work with your existing hardware.
Thanks, Andy. We had a question about, can I use my existing trailer? And you mentioned that the new GST120 was a little bit longer. So I can answer that. It depends on your trailer, of course. So it's only a little bit longer, 270 mil longer. So if your existing trailer can't fit, we can provide a bespoke trailer made for the GST120. Can a customer's existing base station be used? So probably Andy or Ed, perhaps?
Yes. So all the existing kit, we designed the GST120 to be very similar to the Mark II, as Andy mentioned, which shares quite a few parts. So yes, customers can use their existing kit to run the GST120, both DBS as well as our latest GTC software.
Okay, thank you very much, Ed. There's a question about training. Will I need to be retrained to use the GST120? And I can answer that. In terms of using the product, it's almost identical. So no, there is no need to be retrained. If you're familiar with the GST Mark II, you will be able to use the GST120. Moving on now to questions about the brakes. So possibly one for you, Alan. In fact, I think definitely one for you. What frequency can the ABS system modulate the brakes at?
Hi, David. The system looks at the wheel speed every at 20 hertz. So it does a calculation to understand whether it's going to lock or whether it's actually speeding up again. So it actually controls itself at 20 hertz.
Okay, thank you very much. And we've had a question asking whether the ABS still works in aborts and emergency stops.
So there's different layers of safety backups in the GST120. And basically we have set it for the, like I say, a total power failure. So the figures that are quoted, the 6 meters per second squared, is based upon a total power failure. So we have revised the system to minimize tire damage in the case of emergency stop. So we have worked hard to try and maximize the deceleration and protect the tires from flat spotting.
Okay, thank you very much, Alan.
Thank you.
We're starting to run out of time now, but we've probably got time for 1 or 2 more questions. Is the GST120 truck ready, or does it need the heavy-duty panels for the extra weight?
So the GST120 is not truck ready with the panels shown in the presentation. It will indeed require the honeycomb panels for the extra weight of the vehicles. But those, once again, are also ready, and they can be supplied with GST120 orders.
Okay, thanks, Ed. And I think we've got time for 1 more question now. Is the new platform, new longer platform, in combination with the soft car body, a Euro NCAP approved target?
So the soft car body is the Euro NCAP approved soft car, and it meets the ISO specification. So that means you can use it for proving Euro NCAP safety systems according to the standard.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Actually, there is probably 1 more question we've got time for, and it's for you, Alan. Does the ABS functionality involve software only, or is there hardware and software?
There's both. So we have additional hardware inside the GST120 to take the wheel speed and convert that into a signal into the controller inside the GST. Then we have an additional program inside which is used to calculate the split ratio of the GST tires, and then apply a proportional control to prevent the tire from locking.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm afraid we have now run out of time, so thank you very much indeed for joining us today, not only for listening, but also for engaging and asking some really interesting questions. We weren't able to answer all of them, but we will respond individually if we didn't get to your question. Alternatively, please feel free to email tracksupport@abdynamics.com, and the support team will be only too happy to respond. As I mentioned earlier, you will be able to view a recording of the webinar in about 24 hours' time, and the same applies to anyone who registered but wasn't able to attend. If you have any colleagues who didn't register but would like to view a recording, please feel free to pass on the original registration link, so that's what you used to sign up with. There is a copy on our website under the news section, and they will also be able to register for a recording. So thank you very much indeed from me and the panelists, and that brings the webinar to a close.